Welcome back to the program. Let's go. Line number 4. Say good morning to the independent member of the House of Assembly, Mount Pearl Southlands, right? Is that this gentleman's district? Line number 4, Paul Lane. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
Not bad this morning. How about you?
Paddy, I got to be honest with you. I'm more than a little bit frustrated this morning, and I'm going to try to keep my. I've taken a few deep breaths because, to be honest with you, when I read the article by James McLeod in the Telegram, and around Nalcor and the Auditor General, and I guess the response that he got from the Auditor General that he was non-committal in doing anything with Nalcor in terms of an audit. I have to say that my blood pressure went right through the roof.
Because of what?
Because I read the article, and the Auditor General in the article, when asked by James McLeod of the Telegram, he was non-committal in, committing to do any kind of an audit of Nalcor.
Right.
And, given the fact of all of the things that have gone on, and I've talked to you and others about this before. I'm not going to go into a big long list, but I just want to look at if this was a private company. And first of all, I think it's important to note that Nalcor belongs to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. We are its only shareholder. And if this was a private entity and you owned that particular company and you hired people to run a company for you, and their job was to generate power and sell power to your customers. And you had an experience that happened, as did with Dark NL, when they couldn't keep the lights on, and all your customers are left in the dark, and all of the damage that was done as a result of that, all the overtime that had to be paid out to deal with the matter at the time, all of the millions of dollars in upgrades that occurred after the fact. Then you hire a consultant to come in this case Liberty, and they come in and they do a report, and they tell you that the reason why you couldn't keep the lights on is because the people running your company weren't even doing the basic maintenance on the equipment to keep it up and running. And instead of handing out pink slips, you decide, no, we're going to give everyone their bonuses. And it just would not happen in a private company if you or I owned that company. And why should it happen here in Newfoundland and Labrador with a company where we are the only shareholder? Then on top of that, you got a situation where we have the former board and the former CEO, upon his resignation, is throwing out allegations of conflicts of interest. And my God, would that not raise red flags with you? Would you not want to get those allegations checked out? And the fact that he raised them long after the fact, because it wasn't a case of this happened yesterday. This was a case of, as you can recall in the media story and the emails that came out, it was a case of let's load our guns or whatever, let's get some ammunition, we're going to war with government. I know there was a conflict of interest. If you knew there was a conflict of interest 2 or 3 years prior, why didn't you do something about it 2 or 3 years ago? I mean, that has to raise red flags.
Well, of course it does. And, part of that is how we've discussed or debated or criticized Nalcor, is that it's become not an arm of the government, not a crown corporation that has only one role, and that's to satisfy its only shareholders, us, as you rightfully point out. It very quickly became Nalcor versus everybody else. Yeah. And when the Tories, and at that time, you were a member of the Tories.
Absolutely, I was. Yeah.
We were politicizing Nalcor. No matter what they did, the Tories defended them. And that led to, especially when the poll numbers dropped in political support for the PCs, that led to a real rift between the public and Nalcor. Some of it was completely manufactured and unnecessary. The questions that we had were rebuffed by the government of the day and by Nalcor executives. We couldn't get anywhere with the questions that we had. I was always able to get an answer on Muskrat Falls related issues when I asked, but we had a conversation that went from what are you doing representing us versus us against you every step of the way. Board of directors took on that tune, the government took on that tune, and we treated it like a sacred cow, when in fact, when we ask a question about a crown corporation, there should be no hesitation in showing us the answer. And whether that's documented dollars and cents and or philosophy and or emails and personal conflict, you owe me an answer. It's as simple as that. And there's no redaction. It's not proprietary stuff. We're building a hydro dam. We're not putting a man on Mars. So it's no proprietary issues, no commercial sensitivities when contracts are done and closed. So, for instance, what's going on with the Stallings contract? How exactly did it look? There was controversy between man hours and cubic meters of concrete poured. We didn't even know how that looked. And we were told, by all accounts, a lie about it in the first place. So Nalcor's book should be open. The problem with that is that we need the government to direct the Auditor General in there, as opposed to the Auditor General just saying, I'm going in there. That's the case, isn't it?
Well, no. Well, I guess you're right and you're wrong. I mean, first of all, government certainly could direct them to do it. And I wrote the Premier on July the 5th, and this is one that also blows my mind, quite frankly. I wrote the Premier on July the 5th about this, requesting that he do so. I never even got so much of the courtesy of a response to say, thank you for your correspondence, we'll take it under advisement. Nothing. And, when you think about it, Nalcor was created under a past administration. Muskrat was sanctioned under past administration. The boards of directors that have all been in place were all appointed under past administrations. So, all the controversy and the contracts that have been awarded and the overruns, all this stuff all happened under a past administration. So it boggles the mind why the new administration wouldn't be all over this, why they wouldn't want to bring the Auditor General in and get to the bottom of some of the legitimate questions that people have. But, that said, I did contact the Auditor General's office, and I was speaking to the Deputy Auditor General, or Assistant Auditor General, forget the title, but anyway, you know what I mean. And I was told that they don't need government's go-ahead, that they can, on their own, pick and choose where they decide to go.
Sure.
And so both parties, either the Premier can direct or they can do it on their own, but it seems like neither one of them are willing to do it, and I'm just blown away as to why that would be.
There's a political victory involved in it. Like, for instance, whether or not Ed Martin was a good, a great, a terrible, a competent, or not leader at Nalcor, had Premier Ball decided that he was going to change the course, bring in Stan Marshall, and release Ed Martin and pay him millions of dollars of walkaway money, nobody would have batted an eye. There's a political victory available for the government if indeed they send the Auditor General in. And my phrase or choice of words about being sent in versus choosing to go in is that, as I understand it, the Auditor General would need an investment of resources and time made available to do a massive, what would be a huge task in auditing Nalcor, because we're not talking about last year. We're talking about, we must be approaching 10 years or so of Nalcor as an entity. So there's a lot to be done. And some of it's political and some of it's dicey, and some people will be afraid to have those books open because it will show a lot of mud and dirt available to be slung. But the time has come. I mean, everyone's just got to be sick of it.
I agree, and people are sick of it. People have no confidence. They've lost confidence in Nalcor. But as for the resources part, I'm cognizant of that, Paddy, and that's why when I actually wrote the Auditor General, I even threw that point into the letter. I said, I understand that that you only have so much resources in place. So if you don't have the resources to do a full-on audit of everything this year, then what my suggestion was is put in place a multi-year plan to take, certain items like let's look at the tendering practices, for example, of Nalcor. Do they have a tendering program? Is it being adhered to? Because we hear about all the stuff that's happening with all these contracts, and I keep hearing nightmare stories from people, whether they're legit or not. They're hearsay, no doubt, but I keep getting calls from people about some of the stuff going on as it relates to the purchase of equipment and services and stuff that's going on. I mean, these are legitimate things, and we're spending billions and billions of dollars of our money, and, I don't think it's too much. I really don't think it's too much to have the Auditor General come in, whether he is directed, whether he does it in 1 year or multi-years, or whether he does it on his own. At the end of the day, by the way, the Auditor General also works for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. We are paying 100% for his salary, his staff, his office, whatever. And again, to liken it to a private entity, if this was your company and he was your auditor, and you own the company, and you say to him, I want you to come in, and he says, boy, I don't know if that's really a priority. I can't make a commitment to do that, Paddy. I mean, what would you do? It'd be history. You'd be out the door.
I'd be out the door.
That's reality.
Yeah, and I mean, in the private world, if you have common shares available for purchase in the market, you don't get to hide behind these things. You know, there's just nowhere to run and hide, and we've had far too many of these dark corners and dark rooms available for government and their crown corporations to hide in and to shield themselves from any further scrutiny than is currently available. Look, it's just become too much. And here's a classic example. I won't use anybody's name, sir, because I'm not trying to personally attack them.
No,
but
I'm not either, by the way.
No. And I'm just talking about general public. You know, someone says, I don't need the AG to tell me that Astoldi is the problem. They picked the wrong bid. But you know where that comes from, in my personal opinion, is if someone hates the Tories, then they hate Nalcor. If someone didn't trust the Tories, then they don't trust Nalcor. That's exactly what's wrong with Nalcor. It's a great summary of why we actually need someone to look. I don't know enough. Now, it seems like Astoldi was the wrong choice with no experience in that type of harsh climate. It seems like a Canadian company that was the only other bidder would have been a better choice. But wouldn't it be nice to know if we can have the AG do value for money spent on computers in Western education? Wouldn't it be nice to know to have a firm evaluation of that and have it documented versus I don't like the Tories, didn't trust them, so I don't trust Nalcor? That's exactly what's wrong.
Paddy, that is what's wrong, and that's why we have the independence of the Auditor General's office. That's why we need him to come in and do the work. You know, and when you talk about trusting people and so on, look, we went down the road. We had a CEO who was appointed by the PC administration at the time, Mr. Martin. Now, I have no personal issue with Mr. Martin, or his credentials or whatever, but we were basically told, that's the way it worked. Let's trust Ed. He knows what he's doing. If anyone questions anything, Mr. Martin is an expert. He knows what he's doing, and so on. Don't dare question anything that's going on in Nalcor. And that's nothing against Mr. Martin, but that was just the climate that was kind of set up. If you dared speak about it, everyone would say, they know what they're doing. So now the new administration decided to get rid of the CEO. Now they have a new CEO. And by all accounts, he seems to be a fine man, well-educated and qualified from what I can gather. I don't know him personally. I do know Senator Marshall, and she's a fine person. So, but, the bottom line is now we're told, let's just trust Dan. We're appointing people, we're putting all of this into control of an individual or whatever, and there appears to be little to no public oversight. And that is a recipe for disaster. I don't care who's in charge, as far as I'm concerned.
Even if the Public Tender Act, which should be our number one concern, it doesn't apply to Nalcor. And consequently, we have things like the Astoldi controversy. We have things like the $1 billion contract for transmission being let out the door without competition, so far as we can tell. That's just the type of things that are going on. Ed Martin was considered to be Danny's boy, and then consequently, when Danny's polling numbers fell, so did Ed Martin's, as if they were linked at the hip, which I also found funny because people continually told me that Ed Martin was the real premier, not Danny, not Kathy, not Paul, not Tom. So I always found that disconnect to be a little bit rich. This is the time to go ahead and declare the air, whether it be for your political victory and or for the comfort, most importantly, the comfort of the ratepayer and the taxpayer of the province who fund every single dime of operations, with the exception of land sales and royalties and those types of things. Look, we're paying these people. By and large, I bet you it's a top quality company, but we've got to have it proven to the people of the public because now it is a company that operates under a black cloud. Some of that might be fair, but some of it might be grossly unfair. We got to figure it out. I got to get to the break. Let you wrap it up quick.
Not a problem, Paddy. Listen, I thank you for your time. I just want to put it out there once again to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. If you share the concerns that many of us share, I'm asking the people to please email the Auditor General at OAS, which stands for Office of Auditor, OAG, Office of Auditor General, mail at oas.nl.ca. That's OAS mail or OAG mail at oag.nl.ca. And if not, you can just easily look it up on the website. Sure. Email the Auditor General and ask him to go in, do his job. Let's go in there and let's audit Nalcor and let's clear the air once and for all and restore confidence in an entity which is really supposed to be, we are told, our future.
Well, it's going to be play a big, massive role in our future. If we're talking about our energy warehouse and the company operating and managing it, well, then what else does anybody need to know? We've got to go in and make sure we get a fresh start for that company, the right people at the helm, regardless if that's Marshall, fine. If it's not, get out. And we just got to get this figured out. Paul, I do appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Paddy. Always a pleasure. Premier Ball, please do the right thing. Bring in the AG. Thank you.
Thank you, bud.
Okay, bye.
Paul Lane, independent member of the House, Mount Pearl, Southlands.